will discuss a very important point, important topic, which you can use in this, and in fact in all the programming language there must be some the same concept can be used, but of course with a different syntax. So this concept is, there is a variable type in C++ which we call as array. Now this array is something you can call, okay, I will define this. This array is a variable, is a variable that can store multiple values, that can store multiple values. Till now we have seen that if I declare a variable a of integer type, then this variable a can store a single value, or you can say single number, single value of integer type, right? A single variable can contain, can store a single number into the particular location. And we can define, yes, of course we can define the type of number which we want to store into that particular location. Similarly, there can be a float type of variable a, there can be a char type of variable a, right? There can be a string type of variable a, there can be a bool type of variable a, there can be a different type of variables declaration. But in all these types, in all these types, only a single value can be stored of that particular type, whether it is an integer, whether it is having a decimals value, whether it is character, or whether it is a string, a boolean, anything. But yes, in all these cases, only a single value can be stored. Now, array is something, a variable that can store multiple values. Okay, that can store a multiple values. And suppose if I, okay, of course for an declaration, during the declaration of array, I have to declare which type of values I want to store, right? And I have to declare the dimension of this array. Dimension means, okay, I will tell you, for using array there are two things: types of values you want to store, and dimension of array. Basically, this dimension of array is nothing, it is just the size of array. Size means number of elements to be used, to be stored. So suppose, okay, so these two things have to be used, have to be defined before declaration of an array. So if I write something like this, int a bracket 100, this means a is an array type variable. A is an array type variable which will store integer type of values, which will store integer type of values, and the number of values, number of different values that can be stored can be 100, can be 100. So in a single variable, in a single variable you can store 100 different values at different indices, at different positions. So as soon as you declare this type of thing, this array, then memory location, then the compiler will allocate 100 different memory locations to this array. And in these 100 different locations, you can store 100 different numbers of integer type. Right? So suppose you have to store, you are supposed to store marks of a class, and there are 48 students in that class. Right? And roll number are from 1 to 48. In this case, I am considering roll number are from 1 to 48. So how you can do this? You can do this. You can declare a variable int marks or anything. Marks, I am calling this as whole integer, marks 48, like this. Then you can, what you can do is, you can just enter, you can see out, enter marks of student, and you can see into marks, like this. Then it will continuously ask, different marks, and it will store in, as soon as you start this, as soon as you enter this marks, uh, the entered number by the user will be stored into this marks array. The first thing you enter will be stored onto this location. The second will be stored onto this location automatically. You don't have to do anything. Just have to input the numbers, and they will be stored into a single variable. Yes, but all the different values will be stored into this single variable. Similarly, you can call also, you can input at different indices, I will say more scientifically, or you can say location, or you can say position of this array. Similarly, you can also call a stored number from any indices or location or position. So I will give you an example how to create an array, how to give values to that array, and how we can recall the numbers stored in that particular array. Right? Yes. Okay. Before going into this, I just want to clear. Yes, just like this, as we had defined this variable a in with different variable types, we can also define an array with these type of variable types. We can also define a variable array like this, float b10. This array b will contain, or you can say can contain, 10 different elements, and all of those elements has to be float type. Similarly, char c5 can contain 5 different values of character type. Similarly for string and boolean also. So yes, the moral of the story is, for declaration, for using this array, you have to do two things. You have to first declare which type of values you want to store, and second you have to declare the dimension of the array, the size of the array, the number of elements which you want to be stored into an array. So suppose I declare an array like this. I had declared an array of integer type a, and I want to be the dimension of array to be 5. This array I have defined. The name of the array is a. The number of values which you can store is 5, and all the values should be of integer type. Now to insert, okay, first of all I just want to see, yes, I can assign different values to this position, just like this. A1 is equal to, let's say, 6, right? Similarly, I want to define, or you can say initialize, all the positions of this array. A2 I am saying is equal to 12. A3 I am saying is equal to A3. A3 is equal to, I am saying, 15. A4 I am saying is equal to 7, and A5 I am saying is equal to 21, let's say. Okay, so by this I have defined all the elements of the array. What are the values of different elements of array? I have defined this. Now if I want to print, suppose if I want to print the content of any of the position, let's say I want to print A3, right? So simply what will be the output? 15. I have defined an array, I have defined all the elements of this array, and later on I just want to print whatever is stored onto the third position, third element. What is the value of third element of this array? So if I run this program, it will show me 15. So that means, yes, I had given a value 15 to the A3 element, to the third element. That's why it is printing 15, right? So suppose I want to take the values of this array from the user, then how I can do it? How I can do this? I can just use a for loop. Suppose, okay, I have to declare a variable int I. I will use a for loop for I equal to 1, I less than equal to 5, because I want to store 5 elements. So I will make the number of iteration to 5, I plus plus, right? And inside the body of this for loop, I want to ask the user enter number, and I want to see into a I, right? See, by using this for loop, I can change the indices of this variable automatically, or you can say progressively. So in the first iteration, when the value of I was 1, we are entering the number into A1. Similarly, after this, the value of I will become 2, it will enter into the position A2. Similarly, A3, A4,
Fine.
A5, and in this manner. Okay. After this, I am giving command cout A3. So whatever the third number entered by the user should be displayed. Okay. So let's see if I run this program.
That's fine, Bullet. That's fine, Bullet.
Okay. Okay. I have reversed the sign, है ना? So if I run this program, he is saying enter number, right? So if I enter, let's say 56, 52, on second position it is going 74, 14, and 08 and 28. So I have entered 5 number, and whole of the array is created now. At all the positions of this array, all the elements of this array is given by the user, and they have been filled onto their positions. After this, I will ask for the A3 element. So it should give me 74. So if I enter this, it will show me 74. Right? It will show me 74. So in this manner, yes, you can create an array. Right? In this manner, you can create an array. Similarly, suppose if I do not want to print any particular element of array, but I want to print whole of the array, then also what I can do is I can use another for loop. I can use another for loop which can move from I is equal to 1 to I is equal to j, I less than equal to 5. Okay, and I want to see out this thing. Let's say I want to create a row vector. I want to create a row vector. That I can, how I can do that, I will show you. I had enclosed a bracket into the double quotation so that this bracket will appear as it is, and I want to a I, then I want to give some space, then I want to give some space. I can use for that /t, right? And then I can close the bracket. So you can see what it will do is it will create an array. It will create an array first after asking the numbers from the user, and with the help of this for loop, it will display the elements of this array as a row vector, So if I run this program, it will ask me 5 numbers. So let's say if I enter 24, 34, 22, 21, and 78. Okay, that /t was this one, 56, 54, 23, 41, and 47. Let's see. So it will show something like this in each of the. Okay, okay. See what it is
ब्रैकेट
doing.
फॉर लूप से बाहर आएंगे सर.
Yes, very good. Bracket has to be before the for loop. Because they are printing these brackets again and again in each of the iteration. So for that, I have to insert these brackets outside the for loop. starting bracket should be before the for loop and the ending bracket should be after the for loop. So if I run this program again, it should, yes, now you can see this is giving you a row vector, and the elements of these row vectors are entered by the user, right? Now with the help of this for loop and with the help of this array concept, you can solve some problems of your physics also, which we will discuss later. But yes, okay, I will just ask you, I will show you an example of one dimensional array. So this one dimensional array which we have discussed is basically nothing but it was a one dimensional array, because we have defined something like this: only the number of elements are in this direction, you can say. You can also create the same with the help of this one dimensional array. You can also create a column matrices, a column vector. Suppose you have to ask 5 numbers from the user, and you have to display the sum and average of these 5 numbers on the screen. Then can anyone tell me how I can make this program? I have to ask 5 numbers from the user and I have to display the sum average of this 5 numbers of the on the screen, right? The first thing what I can do is I can store these 5 different numbers into 5 different variables a, b, c, d, e, and then I can declare a variable sum which will be equal to a plus b plus c plus d plus e, and then I can find a variable another variable's average which will be sum divided by 5, right? The simplest way is this one, but this is the simplest way. This is not a fastest way, you can say. This one will make the code tedious, and more importantly these are only 5 numbers. Suppose if these are 100 numbers, then yes, this will be a very tedious job. बहुत लंबा काम हो जाएगा, आसान तो होगा बट बहुत लंबा काम होगा. So in these type of cases, yes, it will be very beneficial if you define a variable int a5, array. I am defining a array and the number of elements I am fixing as 5. I will ask the user to enter all the elements, enter these 5 numbers just like this. जो भी किया हमने, cout, enter number, c in into ai, right? Now after this, to calculate these things, what I can do is I can initialize a variable sum with 0. I can again use a for loop I is equal to 1 to 5. Even I can use also j equal to 1, j less than equal to 5. That doesn't matter, okay, because each time the for loop will just create different values of j, right? I can also use I, but yes, I can use any indices, any variable, and all these are called dummy variables. whose name does not matter much. Okay. So for this, what I can do is I can write sum is equal to sum plus a j now, and just okay last. In this for loop, just one statement for each iteration. For each iteration, add the content of this position a1, a2, a3, a4, a5 into the variable sum, and in last I will display sum of entered number is variable sum. Similarly, I can write average of entered number is sum divided by 5, right? So in this manner, yes, I can ask the user for 5 different numbers. I can initialize a variable sum with 0, and I can add all the elements of this array to this variable, and then I can display the content of this variable sum, right? Easy है, कर सकते हैं ये तो. One dimensional array is easy, but see, in this same topic, array can also be defined and used in multi dimensions. In multi dimensions. For example, if I talk about 2D array, a two-dimensional array, a very common array which we use in school level also, and these multi-dimensional or two-dimensional array are called matrices. These we can also define these type of things in this variable array. So suppose I have written this statement int a 3 and 4. Then this means I want to define an array which is two-dimensional array. All the element would be of integer type, and the dimension of this array are 3 cross 4. So there will be 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, and there will be 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there will be 12 elements, a21, a31, a12, a22, a32, and a13, and so on. So there will be different elements of this multi-dimensional array, and we can always define the dimensionality of this array during the declaration itself, right? So yes, we can create this type of array, or you can say we can create matrices with the help of array, and we can work on these matrices. We can find transpose of these matrices, we can find inverse of these matrices, we can find some multiplication, and many things. We can work on arrays as well as we can work on these matrices also. So one thing is the one-dimensional array, which was quite simple, which was looking quite simple, but yes, the another thing is this array which is looking slightly difficult, but yes, if you work on these matrices stepwise, then they will be very easy to understand, and they will be very helpful in solving a lot of physics problems, a lot of physical problems. So suppose, okay, I can, yes, I can always initialize a variable, initialize a matrices also. I can always initialize a array also. So suppose if I write this thing, int x is equal to, int x 3, 4, and I write equal to, in curly brackets, I can write I 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? I have declared initially. I have declared the dimensionality of the first dimensionality of this array A, which is 3. So yes, these 3 rows, the first row will be defined first. So basically, these are the elements which I want to give to these locations A11, A12, A13, A14, and I can place a comma. I can, okay, these all should be curly brackets. Then I can write, let's say, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I define my third row 9, 10, 11, 12. Right? So in this way, what I have done is I have created an array where there will be 3 rows and 4 columns, and I have initialized all the elements of this matrices. I have initialized all the elements of this matrices by some value. And the method, the syntax used for initializing these type of matrices is something like this. In a curly bracket, you have to use multiple curly brackets, and each of these curly brackets represent each row. I have defined there will be 3 different rows. That's why there are 3 different small curly brackets inside this declaration, inside this initialization process. And each of the curly bracket, in each of these curly bracket, there will be different number of columns. So these are basically row 1, row 2, row 3, and these are inside this are column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, again column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. So yes, by this I am defining whole of my matrices, and any of the I can call any of the element by its indices, by its position. Suppose I want to, after declaration and initialization of this array, this matrices, I want to print the content of element which is cout. I want to cout A22. So can you tell me what will be the output if I just want to print the content of element which is at A22 position?
6.
6. It will be 6. Very good. And if I want to print content of A31, if I want to print the
9.
content of
9.
A31, it should be 9. Very good.
9, sir.
Yes. So I am not typing all this on that compiler page, but believe me, the initialization, if we do this initialization like this, and if we want to print the content of any of the element, it will show. It will create a matrices and it will show. But in this example, I have initialized the matrices with a predefined numbers, and I am just asking a particular element of that matrices to display. But yes, these matrices can be user defined, can be user defined. You can define all the elements of these two-dimensional matrices with the help of for loop, and you can ask each and element of these matrices from the user itself. But how we can do this? In a one-dimensional array, if you recall, I have used a for loop, and inside that for loop, I have moved the indices of that array with the help of a for loop variable. फॉर लूप में आई वेरिएबल यूज किया था, उसी आई को मैंने यूज कर लिया था मूव करने के लिए पोजीशन ऑफ द एरे, कि फर्स्ट पोजीशन में क्या आना चाहिए, सेकंड में क्या आना चाहिए, टू आई हैव यूज द सेम for loop variable as my indices variable, right? Similarly, in this case also, suppose there is a matrices a I j, I have to define all the elements, I have to enter all the elements on this I and j position. Then I am forced to use a process which is called nested loops. Nested loops. Now nested loops क्या होता है? अब one loop inside another loop. Suppose there is a for loop for I is equal to something, and inside the body of this for loop there are some statements, but along with these statements there is another for loop with some other indices, of course, other variables, and this for loop again has some things, and then there will be some more statements, and then it will be ended. So you can see I have used a different for loop, another for loop inside the body of a for loop. So whenever the compiler will move, it will move inside the body of for loop. As soon as it encounters this for loop, it will go into this for loop, it will solve all the for loop. Whenever it will come outside this, in this for loop, whenever it came outside this for loop, it will again check this condition, again go into this for loop, and again for this particular value of I, it will again run this second for loop. Okay, so in this way I can say, okay, I am naming them as for loop A and for loop B, right? In this way I can say for loop B is nested into the for loop A, right? Nested means it is inside the for loop A, right? Nest का क्या मीनिंग होता है? Nest meaning is घोंसला. So इन स्टेटमेंट्स का एक घोंसला बना हुआ है. इस फॉर लूप के अंदर एक और फॉर लूप है, वो रन होगा, फिर वापस बाहर की लेयर पे आएगा, फिर उस लेयर के लिए दोबारा से रन होगा, और उस लेयर के अंदर दोबारा फिर फॉर लूप रन होगा, राइट? So these type of nested loops are very important in C++ programming, and in matrix defining, you cannot define a two-dimensional matrices without the help of these nested loops, right? So before going into the definition of this uh, two-dimensional matrix or two-dimensional array, I just want to make a simple program, I want to use a simple example in which these nested loops are used. Suppose I make a very simple program for I equal to 1 to I less than equal to 5. Okay, let's see, 5 I plus plus, and inside the body of this for loop I am again using a for loop which is j equal to 1 to j less than equal to I plus plus, sorry, j plus plus, and inside the body of this for loop I just want to print cout j, tab, right? And outside this for loop, now this for loop is ended because the body of this for loop, second for loop, is ending here, and outside of this I am just writing cout and l, and then I am closing the bracket of first for loop. I should have used, okay, this for and this inside, right? So can you tell me the output of this code? Yes, can you tell me the output of this code? See, for I equal to 1, the compiler will start from here. It will become I equal to 1. Yes, the condition is true. It will go inside the body of for loop A. I am calling this as for loop A. I am calling this as for loop B. It will go inside the body of for loop A. It will encounter for loop B, in which J is starting from 1 and J is, the condition is J should be less than equal to I. So yes, J is less than equal to I. J is equal to 1. Right? J is starting from 1, and in this, for this particular iteration of for loop A, for this particular iteration of for loop A, I stands at 1. So yes, condition is true. It will go inside the body of for loop B, and it will print the content of J, which is 1. So it will print 1. It will give a tab, a blank space, and after coming, yes, on second iteration, during the second iteration of for loop B, the condition will become false. It will come outside. It will come outside means it will come at this position, and at this position I have written cout and L. It will change the line. Now it will again go to for loop A. It will increase the value of I by 1. That will, I will stand at 2 now. I will stand at 2 now. Yes, 2 is less than 5. It will go again inside the body of for loop A. Again it will encounter for loop B, and now the value of I is 2. Value of I is 2. In each iteration of for loop A, in each iteration of for loop A, for loop B will be refreshed. J will always start from 1 and J will go up to the value of I. So in this case also, yes, for this for loop B, there will be two different iterations for J is equal to 1 and J is equal to 2 now. So it will print 1, space and 2, right? And it will, on second iteration, it will come outside the for loop B, and it will change the line. In third case also, I will become 3. Yes, the condition is true. It will go inside. For this J is equal to 1 to J equal to 3, it will print 1, 2, 3. Similarly, it will change the line because of this statement cout and L, which is written on the body of the for loop A only. So it will print 1, 2, 3, 4. On last iteration, it will print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? And on sixth iteration, this for loop A will be ended, and it will come outside this. As simple as that. Right? So this nested for loop, okay, I will give you example of this. Suppose I have declared two variables int ij. Cout I am taking as, okay, before this I want to create another for loop, another nested for loop inside the body of this for loop. For j equal to I, for j equal to 1 to j less than equal to I, right? I just want to, inside the body of this for loop, I just want to print the value of j. Out j, and then give some space, and in last just cout and then just cout and then. Now see, what I have done is I have used a for loop in which variable I is moving from 1 to 5. In the body of this for loop, I have used again a for loop in which another variable j is moving from 1 to I only, and I am displaying j as the output. So if I run this program, let me see what it will show. Okay, okay. Now it will show
सध्या
it
जे ना
see out.
So
What you were
J
saying?
plus plus J plus plus.
Yes, it should be j plus plus because the variable of it is j, not I. So it should be j. So if I run this program, yes, it was supposed to show something like this: 1 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5. Right? So yes, we can use these type of nested for loops for creating these type of things. So suppose you want to create an matrices of order nm, right? Or you can say 2 3. At this position I am just calling them as matrices 2 3. So it will be something like this: a1 1, a1 2, a1 3, a21, a22, a23, right? And you have to enter, you have to ask the user to enter all the elements, all the 6 elements. So for this, what I will do is for I equal to 1, I less than equal to 2, and I plus plus. That means I am creating rows here. I will ask, okay, inside the body of this for loop, I will again create a for loop, and for this j can go from 1 to j can go up to 3, and each time j will increase. And inside the body of this for loop, I am writing C out. I am writing C out, enter. Okay, I will write enter I j th element. Now have you understood my C out statement? I have written enter I, the current value of I, comma, the current value of j, and th element. That means it will show me on the first iteration of I, and in the first iteration of j, it will show on the screen enter. Okay, I should write a also here. Enter space a, enter a 1 1 th. Okay, th I will am removing. Enter 1 1 element, enter a1 1 element, and okay, it is directly, see, with the help of these indices, with the help of these for loop variables, you are directly asking the user to enter the value onto some certain positions, right? And you are redirecting those values directly into those positions and C in into a I j, right? You are directly entering those numbers into the ijth position of that matrices, right? In last, after creating this matrices, in last you can again use this nested loop for I equal to 1 2. Inside this, for j equal to 1 2, C out Aij, just like this. Then it will print the, then it will just print the created matrices. So okay, let's try to make a matrix. So for that I have to declare a array, like the number of rows I am defining as 2, number of columns I am defining as 3. So it will be 2 into 3 matrix. For I is equal to 1 to 2 and for j equal to 1 to 3, C out there A I comma, this comma actually I am writing in double quotations because this has to be treated as a string. I comma j element, right? And inside this for loop only, inside the for loop of j only, I am redirecting the entered value into the position aij. Now my matrices understand this thing, ai comma j, right? Ai bracket I, ai and j, like this. I can the compiler can understand that whatever number is present on the screen, this has to be entered on the aij location, and after this just end. Then again, now this particular code will create a matrices after asking each element of this matrices from the user. Now to print the same matrices, I will play, okay, ये इसकी का है, हाँ. To print the same matrices, I will use similar kind of nested loop statements. For I equal to 1 to 2, j equal to C out aij, right? C out aij. Okay. So I hope this thing should work. I have to place, I think, one more bracket. No, it's okay. So it will show me C in aij. Okay, there should be a semicolon
A
after
semicolon.
that. Yes. Again at C in aij, there should be a semicolon. Okay. Now it is showing enter a11 element. Okay, you have to give some spaces to understand this thing in a good manner. You have to insert a space, you should insert a space after a, you should insert a space before element. So okay, let's call this, I am calling this as 12, a11 element I am calling 12, 2 3, 34, 56, again 12, 27. Okay, and it is showing me stack smashed detected terminated. Now why this happened? Because I have asked it to print I have asked it to print all the elements of this matrices. Out Aij. I just want to print the content of this matrices from I is equal to 1 to 2, from j equal to 1 to 3, and I just want to print C out A 1 1. Okay, please find the mistake in this, why it was not able to print. Yes, can you tell me what is the error in this? Okay, let's beautify this. देख लेंगे error भी. It should be slash t, and after this there should be a cout statement to change the line, so that after each row will be printed in the next line. It has to be something like this, and line. Right. Okay, so if I run this again, it has to be a semicolon. It will ask elements 4 2 3 5 1 4. Yes, now it is showing 5 2 3 1 5 4. Right. So in this way, yes, you can create, you can give the elements to this matrices, and you can display a matrices also. Right. Now there are various ways which you can use to display, to create these matrices. Another way is this, as I have told you, this A23, the dimensionality of the matrices. The dimensionality of the matrices can also be a user defined thing. Number of rows and number of columns can also be user defined. How I can do this? I can just, before the declaration, this you have to keep in your mind, before the declaration of a array, you have to find, okay, I can just nm, I can just define a matrices of dimensionality nm, but before the defining of this, I have to give some values to the end nm. And if the dimensionality of the array has to be user defined, then you can ask the user enter number of rows you want to create, and enter this number into variable n. Similarly, you can also ask for number of columns and store that number into variable m. And then after receiving the value of n and m, you can define matrices A and m, which means there will be n number of rows, m number of columns into this matrices. Now, instead of I equal to 1 semicolon I less than equal to 2, it should be now I less than equal to n, because the number of rows is user defined and user has entered something up, some particular value up to n. Okay, so all these things will be changed accordingly. J will also change. J can go from j is equal to 1 to j equal to m now, right? And all other things will remain same, I guess. Again, in this case also, for displaying also, it will change to n to m, right? So in this way, if you run this program, I always forget to place these semicolons. Okay, enter number of rows you want to create. So suppose I want to create 2 rows only, and I want to create, and number of columns I want to create is uh, 2 again. Okay, let's say 2 into 2 matrices I want to create. Enter a one element 5, 25, 25, and 5. If I want to enter this type of element, then it will print 5, 25, 25, 5, right? But in this case, see, you have defined the number of rows and number of columns itself. By the number of rows and number of columns are user defined in this case, right? Similarly, you can run this program. You can again create an 3 into 3 matrices with the help of this. A1 एलिमेंट पूछेगा, सारे एलिमेंट पूछेगा, and it will print the entered matrices like this, right? So the story is now you can create a matrices, you can display a matrices. Now you can perform a various actions which you were performing in your 12th class with the matrices. You can add, you can define two different matrices, you can take values elements of these matrices from user. Let's say एक matrix बनाते हैं आप a matrix of 3 3 type, a matrices of 3 3 type, 3 3 dimensionality, and a b matrices of 3 3 again. So yes, you can find the sum of these matrices. You can define another matrices a b 3 3 matrices which will be equal to a plus b, right? You can find sum of two matrices, you can find difference of two matrices, you can even find multiplication of two matrices, transpose of a matrix, inverse of a matrix, and many more functions, on these matrices with the help of, with the knowledge of the loop statement, with the help of knowledge of operators, with the knowledge of these arrays. You can solve various problems. Okay, so in this Thursday class, I think I have not uploaded the problem set for array. Okay, I will give you some practice questions, but these are for using for loop. Okay, I will also give you some practice questions on this array. I will give you some practice questions. Yes, this array practices. In this, you will see there are a lot of questions. There are very simple questions also, and there are some more questions. See, input 5 number from the user and store it in array, display the array, and find the sum and average of all the numbers. Very simple question, I have discussed already. Input 5 numbers in an array. Now shift all the elements by one index towards right and last element to the first index. Print the modified array. This you are supposed to do a very simple program. What you are supposed to do, you have to create an array, let's say of a row vector only, array of one dimension only. So this one is a1, a2, a3, a4, and all, okay, a5 also. All the elements has to be user defined, and you have to modify this array, in such a way that all the elements, the contents, the content of all the elements will be shifted to its right position, and the last element will become first element again. So the modified array should look like this: a5, a1, a2, a3, a4. The modified array should look like something like this. So suppose if user has entered this array like this: 16, 13, 14, 19, 21. So you have to print an array. You are supposed to print an array whose contents are like this: 21, 16, 13, 14, 9. So this is a question. So basically, after seeing from the question, you can see the index of the elements are changing. And yes, you can do this change in index of this array with a simple for loop. Suppose you create a for loop I equal to 1, I less than equal to 5, I plus plus, and inside this you write, you assign a I equal to a, okay, a I plus 1 equal to a I, and this, that means the value of a2 will become the previous value of a1. So this 16 will be shifted to a2 now. Similarly, in second iteration, the value of a3 will be the value of previous a2. Previous a2 will become a3, the previous a3 will become a4, the previous a4 will become a5 with the help of this, just this command. And in last outside this for loop, you can just write, you can assign the value of a5, the value of a5 to 1, sorry, value of a1 will be equal to a5, right? So yes, you have to play with all these things. I cannot tell you the exact solution of all the problems. Okay, you have to, now I have given you the knowledge of operators, how you can use different operation, how you can define arrays, how you can use for loop, while loop, if loop, okay, how you can use break statements even. So with the help of all this knowledge, this whole assignment can be done. I do not think I have to give you any hint anymore, okay, in any question. Similarly, okay, you can, I think you can do all these questions if you concentrate, if you try to find, if you try to find the logic behind this particular thing, then I hope you all will be able to do these questions. In this also, you can see you have to make a program to print the following array, right? This is a 3 into 3 matrices. This is a defined 3 into 3 matrices. You do not have to ask these numbers from the user. You just have to create these numbers with the help of I and j variable itself. From the pattern, from this pattern, I can see if I move my I variable to 1 to 3, j variable to 1 to 3, then instead of asking these numbers, these 3, 9, 27 from the user, I can directly create them with the help of my dummy variables ij, because this is something I into I. Okay, this you will see, this is actually 27 is 3 raised to the power 3, this 9 is 3 raised to the power 2, this 3 is 3 raised to the power 1, this is 2 raised to the power 3, 2 raised to the power 2, 2 raised to the power 1, this is 1 raised to the power 3, 1 raised to the power 2, 1 raised to the power 1. So you are basically, what you are seeing is POW bracket n raised to the power n comma m, n raised to the power m. So if you just write inside the second j loop for I, for j, inside that j loop, if you just write c out power I raised to the power j, then I think this output b will can be created. So you have to always find, in second, in third question, you always have to find a relation between some particular relation between I and j, so that these elements can be created and can be stored inside the matrices, right? Yes, would you be able to do this?